Hi, and welcome to our Schema app bi-weekly coaching session. I'm Martha Van Berkel, and I'm joined today by
Mark Van Berkel.
And we're the creators of Schema app. Today, we have a packed agenda. We're going to start by just going through a strategy for our website. We've been asked multiple times to guide and sort of how to best understand what pages to mark up. And so we thought we'd start these coaching sessions walking you through an example. And then we're going to talk a bit about category pages and specifically then how you build templates. So sort of where you build the microdata into the page. And so we'll have Mark walk us through that. And then we'll shift gears and go into open Q&A. So if you have pages that you're either troubleshooting the schema markup on, or you want input on strategy or specific questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A section, and we'll go ahead and make sure we address those one by one through that sort of Q&A portion of today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in, and we're going to start by talking about a site called Divorce Angels. And this is a site that provides a directory of professionals that can help people sort of in a divorce. And so it's unique in that its product is sort of a listing. It's a virtual organization, and then it also has different pages around all the different professionals. So let's go ahead and look in, and I'll go ahead and again talk through sort of what pages I would go ahead and propose we mark up, and then I'll have Mark also clarify what we would optimize those with. So let's go ahead and get started. So you should see now my screen that has the divorceangels.com. And so anytime we get asked to optimize the site, the first thing we do is just explore sort of what's on the web page and what content exists. Again, with schema markup, you want to optimize what content's on the page. And so first we recognize here it's a professional network for divorce support. You can see it has sort of different options here around like professional listings and their categories, a concierge service, savings and classified resources, so commonly asked questions, which in my head goes to think about FAQ and some kind of specific topics around those areas, events, do-it-yourself, press releases. And then if I also scroll down, I can see that down here there's professional inquiries. Now I happen to know that this business makes money by having the professionals pay them to be listed. So as we look here, the first question I'd ask is, what would we want to optimize the homepage for? And it's not really a local business because it serves multiple cities. And so we'd kind of go in at the highest level at an organization. And I'd want to sort of use additional type to articulate that it's an organization that focuses on divorce. Then I'd want to ask, well, what do they sell? So the question that I often ask in strategy is, what's important for the business, or what's strategic about what the business offers? And then what are the opportunities around Google features or rich snippets? And so when I ask what's important for the business, the first thing is that where they make money. And in this case, they make money by having the professional lawyers or dating coaches or arbitrators pay them. And so the only place I see them talking about that is actually at the bottom here under professional inquiries. And so this is the page that we would call their product. And you can see it only has content on here. It doesn't actually have a price point. So it would be, this would be maybe the service that they sell or their product. Oh no, Mark, service or product?
I don't know. I think it's a service.
Probably a service because it's people, right?
It's virtual.
And it's virtual, and there wouldn't be an offer because there's not a price point on it. Okay, so the other thing then I say, well, then what are also its important assets? And the important assets for this is actually those professional listings. That's what people are paying for. So I've gone ahead and opened, kind of gone through to a page where they actually have the page of their 4 listings. Now, they only allow 4 different people per category. And each of these pages would be sort of the landing page around collaborative family law for the area served of Toronto. And then for each of these, in their details, it actually talks about their business. So this could be actually marked up as a local business, Schaefer Law, at this location with this contact information and this map. And it has a bit more about the business. And, you know, even their endorsement, you could even maybe say is a review of it. And so this is really, you know, two things where what they sell is actually like the value they're offering and what they want people to find. But it also is a value add that they can then tell you know, Leanne Schaefer and the other lawyers that they're optimizing it with schema markup, kind of again, incenting further value. And so next I'd want to say is like, well, how do people get in contact with them? So that's usually the kind of other basic thing I want to say, like, how do you get in contact with the divorce angel? So they have contact again down here in the footer. And so let's go ahead and have a look at that. And you'll notice here, I'm still sort of looking at what's important to the business. I haven't switched gears to say, okay, what else can we also get rich snippets for, or rich results for? So contact us, you can see it, Jen, it's just kind of more, it's just a contact page. It actually doesn't have their phone number or anything, it's just more a contact listing. Mark, in a case like this where there's actually no phone number or no email, does it make sense to optimize it?
Yeah, you can still make like the concept of this form as like what you're marking up, like you're contacting the service department or their sales, probably more or less sales kind of form, right? And so I would put like the URL of this form is kind of like you know, what we're kind of trying to talk about and try to describe. It'll probably throw some errors in Google because they're more interested in contact points defined as telephone and that sort of thing. So yeah, I would still mark it up though. Like that's a very legitimate use of like a contact point is that method of interacting, and that's a form.
Okay. And then other things that are important to their business is maybe their content. So they do get found quite a lot through organic search. And so those are today under their blog, sort of under their resources. And so they have common divorce questions, legal. And so this would be the other area I'd want to sort of optimize. And in here, it's really just like categories of their blogs, even though this is kind of frequently asked questions. And so with the FAQ, you can always mark those up as questions and answers. And so these ones you might mark up separately from their blog because it's a specific question. And especially if they're trying to contributor rank in a knowledge or what they call rich answers, marking these up as questions and answers might make the most sense. Since there's not one document that's an FAQ document, but instead each of these are a question and an answer. Other resources they have in here would just be sort of under their blog. And I believe this is on WordPress, so they could just use the Schema app WordPress plugin. So after I sort of look at those kind of main pieces, you know, concierge service may be the only other thing I look at and say, you know, is this another service? And whenever I'm exploring this, I sort of have a look, and then I also sit down with the business owner and ask them that question of like, what's important about your business, or tell me sort of the primary things about your business. So here you can see this is also a consulting. So this would be another service that we could mark up under the concierge service since it's something that they offer by the hour. Then I would switch gears and put on sort of our SEO hat and ask, okay, well, what else can we optimize that will contribute to rich results? And so if we sort of have a look here, so events jumps out at me as something that we can kind of articulate in schema markup as a specific event. And so, you know, today there's no events listed, but events would be something that we would want to kind of call out. Let's see if there's any previous events on here. And anything that's repeated like these events, again, Mark's going to talk a bit about templates and sort of building microdata in. You know, ideally you have it built so anytime you add, let's say, a new professional or a new event, that's automatically optimized for schema markup, and then you go ahead and optimize it.
So this is actually one of the events calendar plugins. So I don't think it's available for free, but I've paid for it a couple times for some clients in the past, and so I would check to see if they've actually already done some work to do the schema markup. And since I've looked at them, I don't think I've actually looked at their schema markup. So I'd be surprised if they don't, and if they don't, it would be something you'd have to look at in their template to extend. But I'd be fairly surprised if they don't.
So I'd also want to then, I was like, do they have any reviews or testimonials, right? So that would be sort of the other thing I'd look for. And I don't see any sort of obviously listed anywhere. And so that would be something that I would, I'd sort of ask them if they plan to do or if they want to add. And then I don't see anything else here. We sort of no products, like hard products that they would want to list. But what you can do is just go to, the Google like the Google structured data. I'm just going to go to the Google page. That sort of introduces me to, this is sort of like where, and I sort of have a look here and I go to data types and I kind of run down here. So, do they have any courses, any reviews, any TV or movies? They do have some videos actually through their PR. So videos might be a good one that we'd also want to optimize. So you can see they have their video here, and then in their PR section or media, they've been on quite a few shows. And so we could probably optimize their videos on media. And so again, it's a matter of, again, understanding what's important to the business, but then coming back here to Google's documentation and really just like having a quick look. So, corporate contacts, logos, and social profiles are all tied to the organization. So that will be covered. Articles are through those blog or those FAQ pages. We've talked a bit about reviews not being there, but an opportunity to add it. Videos, being able to add it. Events, and then we talked about some products and services. And Google doesn't list services today, but services are really important as people sort of try to find them.
You can have a service like defined as a product, so that's kind of mixing the meaning of them. But the definition of a schema.org/product is product or service, and so the distinction is that it has an offer, like it's more explicit about maybe its details. So like the G10, like that global trade identifier number is something that's defined as a product. And so if you can still you still have to make a decision about that, which service, like you may want to put the service as a product and if you're actually selling it in that way. It might be a little tricky. There's a question here, Martha.
All right.
How do you mark up the service reviews? So if in the Divorce Angel services, and if they have reviews for those, how would you suggest?
So the professional listings?
Or I would think the concierge type service?
So I believe that you can associate a review, what is it the review about? And then you can link it directly to the product or service. And so that's how I would tie them. So I'd again sort of ask, how do I connect? And last time we showed how you can use our mapping tool. And maybe let's go back there. I'm just going to open Schema. So what I'm going in to do is to, it's totally going to give me a, is I'm going to go in and look at sort of the mapping tool that helps me understand sort of how I map two different classes together. So if you're in Schema app and you go under this Schema paths, you can see it sort of over here. And under Schema paths, I'm going to ask exactly that question you did. So how do I associate a review?
Service first.
Mark saying put in service. All right, let's go to service. There it is. With a review. And so here you can see it says service has property review. So I'd be able to link that directly. And so that's how we would sort of designate how those things go together. The review could also be against the organization, and then the local businesses could also have reviews. So if they're capturing reviews about the professionals they're listing, they could also tie it there. So again, what is the review about is always the first question. I do have a sample proposal that I use, I've sort of used over the years to articulate sort of what we think or want to do sort of as part of the strategy. And I am happy to share that with you. So if you're interested, you can just send me a note. I haven't blogged yet about sort of how to put together a proposal for doing schema markup, but I am happy to share that with you one-on-one. All right, we have some good questions that we'll hit sort of in our Q&A session. But let's go ahead and I'm going to hand it over to Mark, and we're going to talk a bit about templates. So if you have multiple recurring pages, how do you do that markup? So Mark, over to you.
Are we referring to the Divorce Angel listings?
Well, we're going to do maybe that other medical site that someone had submitted.
Okay. In their directory?
That's correct, yeah. So maybe you can give us a bit of the context of what this website's about, Mark?
No. No, it's been a bit of time since I thought about this one. Martha?
So it's
I'd rather you do.
Sure. So it's a website that has listings of different companies that provide solutions in different areas of sort of health. So whether it be scheduling or electronic claim submissions or healthcare software. So these are all kind of category pages that then sort of list different types of businesses.
Okay. Sounds fine.
So let's pick a category, maybe practice management software.
Okay, so what I am thinking about is, first of all, like how many pages are there? So before we were going to get into whether or not you're going to do this manually or you're going to do this through templates, I usually kind of have a rule of thumb that if it's over 10 pages that are basically the same type of content, then you may want to look at doing it in a template. And by template, I just mean like we're going to have to do some programming in either HTML or in PHP to create the markup for these profiles. And that's contrasted, of course, by just doing this manually. So like you might do 8 of them manually, and each one might take you 15 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on how much replication there is. And so you'd have to weigh that with how easier or your resources for doing programming.
And Jordan says there's about 150 pages for this, and his explanation of the company is that it's a medical billing company that provides the directory for healthcare directories for healthcare professionals. Okay,
yeah, it's a good one for doing templates, and it's going to vary. So when you kind of get into templates, there's some options, right? So first, I would probably actually like to bring you guys over to the data highlighter to give you some sense of what it means to do a template. So this is, I'm going to pull out an example.
So maybe one question mark before you jump into how, like,
yeah.
What are some requirements of the like situation or access with the customer that you have to have in order to do templates? So I found that this is often like the first question is like, do you have edit access to the HTML? Like, do you have, maybe you don't have access to that, but you have access to
True. Yeah,
Google Tag Manager. So what are some options here?
I guess we're kind of spoiled with WordPress because you have control over your ability to edit the templates. And other web platforms like Squarespace, you do not have that access, or Wix especially, like you have no control over those templates. Even when, what was that one that we worked on a couple days ago? Volusion, yeah.
Volusion.
Yeah, Volusion, I thought we were going to have a pretty good opportunity there. We had a client, and it turns out you do not have great control over your HTML. So that's one question to kind of ask, like at the beginning, like, is it even possible to edit your templates? And if you don't have an ability to edit your templates, there's still ways you can do it. So you can solve it sometimes with using JavaScript, or if you can do some other type of server-side code, you can still you might be able to get around it. But for the most part, it's almost a non-starter. And then the other kind of question to keep in mind is, like, do you have, do you want to do it with microdata, or do you want to do it with JSON LD? And then even another option is to kind of use maybe one of the WordPress kind of tools with like, we have a poll that's open asking about, do you use advanced custom fields or do you use custom post types? And those are some popular ways in which you can like create a custom post type, which for this business, like telemedicine, that would be like maybe this listing, this business directory would be like a custom post type of a business profile. And you can kind of use some of the built-in WordPress functionality to kind of do half the work. So like you're kind of organizing your data, you would be like each one of these things would have their own field. So a business phone number, business website address, the description and category. Each one of these things would have their own field within that custom post type. And so that actually is like the first part of this to kind of know, is the data separated or is it just one blob of text? Because if it's a blob of text, it's going to be really difficult to do anything with it. And so I do want to kind of show you kind of tangibly what it would look like. So I have a couple of other things I can pull up too, and depending on our time. About 10 minutes, Martha?
Yeah.
So we'll call this is the structured data highlighter, and this is in Search Console. Under the search appearance, you can get this. And this is fairly useful, just, well, for a couple of reasons, but, oh, I can't do it for other people. So, that blog. So what you can do with this, they have like that 8 or so different types. So among the many hundreds of schema.org types, and there's a lot of subtypes that you can actually capture. So local business captures amongst all its subtypes probably 100 different classes. So this could also be applied to all those other businesses types. So, and then you just would replace the local business with like your HVAC kind of construction company or jewelry store, whatever that case is. So what's nice about this is, oh yeah, I'm mixing types. So
I was wondering,
that's not a local business.
I was wondering why you were saying I was a local business.
Yeah. Let's try that again. There's a blog posting, an article.
And so, Mark, after we sort of show this example of how this can get people started, how to build templates, I might also have you comment on like how you can also build it with JSON LD. Yeah.
Okay, so this tool, you basically just drag and highlight. You can get things, and then you'll see things on the right. So it's going to populate. Is this news? Yeah, that's a news article, right?
Yeah.
And what else? So on the right-hand side, date published. You can see as I highlight things on the right-hand side, it's coming up with the stuff that it's come out with. So one of the limitations, though, is that you only have 6 different fields. So you don't have access to all the schema.org fields within this, but it does give you the sense of how you would mark this up within microdata. What else? We have average rating. I don't think we have a rating on our blogs. So we've basically filled out all the fields that we have. And if I hit publish, maybe they've changed this around, Martha. Yeah, it's been a while since I looked at this. But normally what you can also grab out of this, maybe I'm looking in the wrong place, but I don't usually use this tool. I was trying to demonstrate usually they do a preview of the microdata changes within the HTML templates. So I don't use this because I could just do it like straight away, and then I want to demonstrate
Maybe up here.
I don't know.
Oh man.
Okay, I'll flip this around a bit. Really Google. So what you got to do, you got to look at the code. So
we were trying to avoid that, weren't we?
yeah. Well, I was trying to give for people who don't do don't do any code. It's just to give you a sense of where things go and how to do it. So this is going to be captured in probably this main content of page. So there's actually a bit of microdata already inside of this. So why don't we actually flip back to this one? So under telemedicine, that's going to be like the category. So right here, and then there's a listings list. So I'm reading on this right-hand side, there's category name. So this could be like a collection page, for instance, or it could be just a bunch of listings. So we might want to say this is the topic and kind of organize these listings underneath this collection, or we just kind of go ahead and do the listings. And it'd probably be more value to Reach Health if we just kind of had its company at the highest level, not buried underneath the collection page. So as I kind of go through the HTML, you can see, okay, this block is the summary of that whole of that business listing. So you'd want to add in like your HTML to kind of talk about the microdata. So you got the item scope, and then item type. And this is some sort of medical organization, maybe. Not really sure. Whatever the business type is, you give it in there. Do I get that right?
And really what you're trying to do here, Mark, is tag the item types on the different sections of content. That's sort of the essence of microdata, correct?
Yeah.
And so we wanted to address this because people are often asking us, when you're building your strategy, how do you actually mark up the things that aren't static? You could do all of these pages also with Schema app, except it's a lot of work. And then you can also dynamically generate the JSON LD. Either you can do a bulk upload with Schema app if you have all this information in a database, or you can also generate the JSON LD directly on the site, which is a bit of coding.
So just to kind of give one more example. So here now we've got, it's going to be really small for people, so let's try zooming in a bit. But you would add the item prop name. So right here, I've got the item prop name. That's basically the business name, I believe. Yeah. And so this is very common for doing. Like, and here's an example of a local business in the schema.org. And this, you can see all the item type, item scope, item prop, all that stuff. So what you want to do once you have some sense of, okay, what block, that would be like this div or this kind of group of HTML, that's like the scope of each business. You want to either recommend this to your developer to say, okay, I want you to add the item scope and the item type, and then for that business name, I add the item prop. And so you have to give the instructions about like adding some of that HTML in. A useful kind of scenario might be for us to look at. I'm going to switch to developing tool.
Mark, we got 2 minutes, and then we're going to shift gears to put you in the hot seat to answer people's questions.
Okay, I won't be able to cover JSON LD then. Okay, sorry, my face was very close to the screen as I was looking at my small. Okay, so here I'm looking at, this is the developer environment. This is the WooCommerce plugin. Under WooCommerce, they have their templates. And what you want to be able to, like, you can look at their schema.org markup. That's kind of comes out of the box. So here I just did a search for schema.org, and you can find all their stuff. So for instance, here you can see they've added item prop offers, item scope, the stuff for offers. So this is under the price template, and you can see how people, like, and if you needed to add things, the programmer would have to come in here, maybe switch these properties or make some updates in here. So that you'd want to do that in that repeating section. For preferred health here, so perhaps this looks like it's an archive. So it's probably one page template for archives, and so you have to find that page template, go to the section with the div. You'd kind of track it down by probably this class. Like you could probably do a search for this class within the code for your theme. You'd find that exact div, and then you can start adding the item scope, item type, item prop within that. You'd have to flip through this a little bit, like this kind of code. This is probably representative of what it would look like. And that's how you can kind of do a template. There's obviously a lot more to it. This is all using microdata, which is mixed in, which is a little messy to kind of actually implement because you're kind of mix and matching with PHP and HTML. So there is a possibility you're going to cause a PHP error if you kind of do something wrong in that section. The HTML is super forgiving, so nothing really. Don't worry about the HTML part of it, but a PHP error could break that page. To do it, I'll just kind of say in brief with JSON LD, which isn't going to use any of the page templates. You'd have to use a bit more programming. So in this one, we basically have a situation where we just, in WordPress, we're saying, okay, give me the post name of the parent, and if it matches a certain condition, we're going to create that schema markup for that industry. So that schema markup down here, or actually in another section, it gets populated into the template. You're going to have to write code that says basically like this address for that listing. You're going to get that meta information out of the database, and you got to write some routines to pull that out, map it into your address. And obviously I'm skimming way too fast for this to be really useful, but it gives you a sense of what you need to do with JSON LD. So you kind of build up your collection of business information, and then you spit that out to your HTML.
So if they don't want to code, they could also use our bulk upload, right?
Yep.
So if you basically had a data source for all your data, you can actually send either a dump of that data or like a data feed to Schema app, and we can translate that into JSON LD and deploy it through automatic deployment of however you want to do it, like WordPress, plugin, etc. So again, if you don't want to get into the nitty gritty messiness, that's where sort of our bulk capabilities can really help. And we're now offering like a one-time bulk offering, so that if you have a site that you're doing work on and you want to kind of get started and then just do it periodically as you ramp up your pages, that's also an option.
How would you do the pricing, Martha, for a template? Like for our customers who are trying to do it for their own clients?
Yeah, so for customers today, we currently, if we're doing consulting on a template, we'll charge $800 per template. If they have similar templates, so let's say they have some that are like just a little bit different, what we'll do is we'll kind of categorize like the analysis part of it, and then just associate how much time we think it will be to customize that kind of once we do sort of the first round of it.
I wasn't really thinking about price, but more like what is that made out of? Yeah, like how do you come to that?
How do I come to that price?
Yeah.
So
like what's work involved?
What's the work involved? Well, Mark, you do the work.
You do the estimating.
I do the estimating. So it comes down to sort of the analysis. So everything that we talked about when we were first putting together the strategy, and looking at, what's on the page, what needs to be optimized, where's the data exist, and then also the implementation. Is it on a platform that's easy for us to do the implementation? Is it on a platform like Volusion or something kind of corner that's harder to do, where we have to do additional analysis or planning to just get it deployed? And then we also we do testing at the end. So it depends on sort of the client as to what level of all of that we do, whether we're just doing strategy and they're doing the implementation, what platform they're on, et cetera. So that's sort of some of the questions that we ask. A quick answer, because we're talking about pricing. I usually save like quick updates for Schema app at the end, but we are working on a new pricing model that will give you flexibility to just add domains one at a time, or in sort of smaller groups. So Joel, your question of like, is there a 20 domain pricing? The answer is yes. There'll be ability to add just a domain as you ramp up clients, since we know that for those of you that are agencies, that the flexibility of being able to add one domain at a time really makes sense. So we'll be shifting that. We're hoping to implement it in kind of the March, maybe early April timeframe. Okay, so we're going to switch gears. It's time to answer their questions. So we have two, Mark, I like to put Mark on the hot seat here. So the first question is, Mark, can you show how to use Schema app to optimize a video? So there's a video on Divorce Angels, if you wanted to use that.
Okay. Which one was it? Wistia?
Wistia?
Wistia has schema markup built in. So if you have Wistia, you might not have to do anything. That's my short answer. Because so in Wistia there's one or two different ways in which you can publish your Wistia videos, and so one of them I think is using an iframe, and the other one is some sort of JavaScript kind of method, and I think it's the JavaScript method which produces schema markup out of the box. So that's the short answer if you're using that. But barring that, you can use the Schema app editor to create the schema markup, and I can have a look at that now. So a video object is basically what we're looking at. Martha's got one here. No idea if it's any good. Looks pretty good, actually.
How to be a video rock star.
Yes. So a couple of things. Duration is an interesting part. So there's a very specific formula for that, and it's not something we made up. It's the schema.org community that said we're going to use this format for date time, and we should have a quick look at the video's instructions from Google. So we want to make sure that we're covering off the required fields. So we want, yeah, what? So these are built into Schema app, like so the name, description. So here we've got some of the required fields. So name, description, thumbnail, URL. So this you need a JPEG that will give you the thumbnail, and upload date. Those are all required fields. After that, recommended stuff like this duration. So there's a link here that takes you to the ISO format, which
is confusing.
Yep, I'll grant you that. So down here in duration. So that's just all the technical way to do it. So I'm not going to try to explain it to you right now, but
so Mark, in future, could Schema app let you put in like a normal number and you could convert it into that weird format?
What's a normal number?
Like, like a time clock, 8 hours,
based
4
on
minutes.
What? Yeah, is it going to be calculated in seconds? Because otherwise I'd have to convert it, and I'm guessing. So you get into the same problem. Oh. We can help guide you, so we could have maybe
some better examples.
Like we can provide a way to edit, with drop downs to say it's 1 hour and then 24 minutes.
Oh yeah, maybe that would be better.
Rather than just kind of like this.
It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah, I'll grant you that.
I'm saying it's hard, and I've done it a bunch of times, and I have to always go back to the examples.
Yeah.
So maybe
P just kind of denotes that that's the start. Then it would follow with like dates or days. Anything be more like with 24 hours or less is after the T for time. So this one is saying like P, and then there's no day, so it's less than 1 day long. T says after this it's in time, so 1 minute 35 seconds. That's that code. And then there's another one for hours, so you'd have like maybe 3 hours, 1 minute, and 35 seconds.
Now, about is really interesting on this one, right? Because you can be explicit about what the video is about.
The topic. So this one's about Martha being a rock star. So
it's about video, like doing video messaging.
Okay. I don't probably have an entity for that. So you can create one of those yourself.
Or do Wikipedia or something on it.
Sure.
And then if Mark...
The embed URL, though, that's the last one before we go off of this one. So this one you can grab from YouTube. Should be able to grab it quickly. So in YouTube, they have the share under the embed. Whoa, wrong button. So in here you have an embed code in that source. So that's how you can grab that embed URL.
So one of the questions I think is always like, how does the video relate to the other entities on the page? And so Mark, maybe you can open this link from Dan K. And what we can do is we'll look at Dan's example. So those are sort of the required fields for doing a video. And so now it's I think a question of like, how do you would you tie this video into this page?
Yeah, for sure. What are we looking at though? Is this a listing? No, a category page of some sort?
Yeah.
It's about Mississauga real estate?
That's correct, yeah.
So whatever that concept is, you'd have to figure out what's the path again?
Back to the schema paths tool. I think was like probably our most used tool that we show every week.
Yeah, well, actually one shortcut maybe is if we look at the property. So there's a property, I don't know, I guess I could look at it a different way, but so I know there's a video property, and what it's saying here is using these types. So creative works or any of the subtypes.
So a property, Mark, what's that again? Just remind us.
That's the attribute or the way in which you relate something to a value. I don't know, something to something else. It's kind of the, I don't know, property.
Yeah, it's a property, an attribute of something else. So it's like
here's the definition.
An article can have, has video, right? Is sort of one that
relationships of things. There we go.
Okay, so let's go back to the video. So when we're trying to figure out how do we want to relate the two, you can kind of use that paths tool or come to the schema.org page and have a look here. So what are you looking for, Mark, at the bottom?
I'm looking at the reverse thing. They have this. Instances of video object may appear as values for the following properties. So a video is one property, but a video object could also be under trailer, and so you can relate it to all these other ones. These are all actually subtypes of a creative work anyway. So in this case, so it's some sort of, I would say this is an article that's talking about
the spectacular condo.
This condo complex. So it might be hard to relate a video to something that's not a creative work. So creative works would cover articles or blog posts, events. I think events. No, not events.
Because that's a building.
Yeah. So it's
almost like an offer.
A place. It's a place, and it's also a product. So we could look at those two.
Mark's looking in the tool to say, like, can we relate a place with a video object?
I would not use that.
So you can also look at the reverse too, right?
Product, yeah, none of those are really great solutions. So you can do it another way around. So in reverse, basically, what do we want to relate it to? A service page or no product?
Or place.
Okay, so we have an about. So here you might want to say create two high-level entities. So the first might be an article, this product of this M City Spectacular Condo Complex. Create all the markup for that, and then create another data item for the video, and use the video's about property to relate it back to this article. So in that way, that both of these things would be at the highest level, but you're relating it from the video. So Google can figure that out.
So Dan has one more clarifying question, which I think is always a good one to cover, which is it about a product or the offering of a product? So maybe you can talk a bit about the difference between product and offer, and then we'll move on to the next question.
An offer is something to transfer some rights of an item to provide a service. So I think of an offer more of it's like if it has a price, then it's an offer. If it's describing something that could be sold at maybe variable pricing, then that's a product. So in this case, we're talking about a product. Like there's no pricing here. Like there's no kind of definitions about that. And is that kind of covering it, Martha? I don't know. I didn't go into detail.
Yeah, I think that's all right. All right. So the other question they want you to do a demo of is that what we talked about earlier about relating a service and a review. So maybe you can just open a service and show us how you would add a review. And there's lots of service examples in mind. So if you go to and then we'll save the last 5 minutes. We'll just show you the outcome of doing semantic analytics. And then we'll wrap it up. So any other questions, feel free to submit them, and then we can always answer them offline too.
So review. So this is a service. This is massage therapy, and we have a review property down here. We want to collect or create a new review. So
this could be a review from Martha, for example. And then would you change the URI on this?
Depends. Depends on how much information partly like is going to be related downstream to the review. First, I guess, is the question, where does that review live on the internet? Is that review already on that page of the massage therapy? Like, so does a massage therapy service have like 8 reviews listed on it?
And sure, let's do that example.
Okay, then in that case, you want it to be on that URI, but you don't want it to collide with the massage therapy. So that's when we use the hashtags to allow you to add a new identifier on that page. So I'm going to pretend that's the URL. So we want to do this and then create something with this hashtag at the end. This is going to keep it separate from from that main service. And so then you would use that, and the tool will figure out everything that starts with that URL and pull out anything that has a hashtag that follows it. Now,
if it were to be on Google or Facebook, like off page, how would that change it?
Well, if it's entirely off page, pretty much. Yeah, I would just leave the default URI. That's a totally suitable one, but you do want to change the URL. So, and there's a bit of a distinction between that, and the URL is more specifically saying this is where this review can be found on the internet, whereas the ID is something which you're trying to, I don't know the best definition for this, but some unique identifier on the web, and it can be different from the URI or the URL. Sorry, it can be different from that. Like where we have used those hashtag kind of patterns. Like that's an instance where you're finding it on this page, but the specific block of data is used, you declare it with that ID. I don't know. We could probably spend a whole half an hour on kind of talking about the URI and URL and same as, and
maybe that's a future topic for another week for us to kind of go.
I do have a module in their training that kind of talks about all this stuff in a bit more detail. So it's hard to unwrap all this and unpack all this in a couple minutes.
And so then the key pieces in doing the review, though, is those required fields. Again, sort of it has the it's under
We're on the
service
page.
Oh, sorry. So we go to our review here. And then the review here, would that be, what would you put in there, Mark?
Nothing actually for that one. I think that's.
So that could be Martha if I'm the person that.
Yeah. No, I'm just observing. There's a review here. It's probably it shouldn't be in this section, and it's probably inheriting from something. I'll come back to that in another time. So the author here, this would be Martha. So figure out Martha. Find Martha. Which one are you? Let's call you this one. Date published. Maybe it was last week. The publisher would be. It depends. Like if you're collecting the reviews on your site, then it would be your site, but the publisher might be Google or it might be Yelp.
So would it be okay to put that URL in there?
I would probably just put the URL of that company, like Google or Yelp. So like you're trying to connect it to the ID of Yelp, the organization. So you might want to check their homepage. They may even have like an ID already set up. So that's where you would actually use the ID rather than the URL. The URL down here though is required to kind of to inform Google of where the details of the review exist.
Okay.
So this would be like yelp.com/ your profile review 2 or whatever.
Yep. All right, we're almost out of time here. So the review body would be the thing you can just cut and paste in there, right?
Yeah, so that's the description, like the 1 or 2 lines that they've given you, or Martha's given about the massage therapy service.
And then the rating, I always like to specify is like if there's a number associated to it, right? So if it's the review is the words and the rating is the number. And so we have some video tutorials that talk about sort of how you can create that rating, and it asks for sort of the low end and the high end. So we only have a couple minutes left. Joey, I will take your feedback though to see if we can't do an updated video on doing those ratings and reviews and talk a bit about those 2 differences we spoke about. So I'll put that on my action list. So we're going to just talk briefly about semantic analytics. And I don't know, Mark, maybe you can just bring up Schema app in Google Analytics and kind of show our authors.
Yeah, I can.
All right, maybe stop sharing first and then we can. So while you bring that up, I'll just kind of talk to the group. So we're about to release a new release of semantic analytics. And semantic analytics is something that we didn't kind of create, but we've created a new way to automate that process. And the idea is you do all this work to add schema markup to describe what the pages are about. Wouldn't it be great if you could then leverage all that information to add that context to your analytics? And wouldn't it also be great if you could report on pages that have schema markup and how they're performing compared to pages that don't have schema markup? And so when you're trying to articulate the value that you're offering, very specifically with the markup that you're adding, how do we enable you to report that better? And the story I really like to tell is sort of twofold. So one is if you're a really content-rich site that has multiple authors, wouldn't it be great if your marketing person could know which author is actually driving conversions and which author writing about what topics are what's driving conversions, and that could inform your content strategy. And then if you're an e-commerce site and you have all these different products and you're trying to figure out sort of maybe where you should do promos on products or where you should evolve your product portfolio, wouldn't it be helpful if you could actually report on, which product and maybe even product features are deriving those results? And so semantic analytics really allows you to start getting into sort of that detailed level of reporting and be able to show those differences. And one of the clients that we're doing our beta with has a jewelry company, and it's quite a lot of jewelry. And so we can actually look at, are the gold bracelets driving more sales, or how many the bracelets that have charms? And then we're also able to report on a very large scale, sort of the sample of pages that have schema markup versus those that don't. And so that's what we're going to be releasing very soon to all of our Schema app subscribers. And because you guys are early subscribers, you'll get that sort of part of your existing package. And we'll basically be inviting you to a deep dive webinar on semantic analytics so that you can learn more about sort of what we're doing and how to use it, and how you can start using this as part of part of your business intelligence and showing value and informing strategy. So we're pretty much out of time today to show you sort of a deep demo on that. So we'll sort of schedule that for another time. And again, I'll just encourage you, we do like to hear from you on sort of what you want us to focus on in these coaching calls. We're going to try to start at the beginning with a strategy, and then one sort of piece that we've heard a lot in support over the last 2 weeks. And then again, try to keep the second half for specific examples or troubleshooting of pages that you're interested in. So please don't hesitate to send us questions or ask us to focus on your pages during these sessions. We love it when you do that, so that we are adding value and really doing the best to add value to your day. So thanks for using Schema app. Again, more coming in the semantic analytics and the Shopify add-on. And again, if there's areas that you want new tutorials on, just send that over to us at support@schemaapp.com. Oh, support@hunchmanifest.com. Have a great day.